close your eyes and listen to the full sleep story on our channel. Sweet Dreams. Episode 14. The Boat Builder Who Carried Dreams Across the River. Part 1. The River That Remembered Every Crossing. The forest path wound gently between towering pine trees. Golden morning light filtered through the branches. Tiny birds greeted the new day with cheerful songs. The air carried the fresh scent of moss, wildflowers, and rain that had fallen sometime during the night. Ethan walked quietly. His backpack rested comfortably upon his shoulders. Inside, the treasures from every journey remained safe. Each one carried a lesson. Each one whispered a memory. The smooth river stone, the white seashell, the pressed lavender blossom, the silver tuning fork, the little wooden key, the key of Hearth Glen, the cedar seeds, and the carved wooden heart that simply read, "You belong here." The path slowly descended through the forest. Soon, the sound reached him, not the crashing of ocean waves, not the whisper of wind through cedar trees. It was gentler, steady, endless, the soft murmur of flowing water. Ethan smiled. The river. He continued walking until the trees opened onto a wide valley. Before him stretched a beautiful river unlike any he had ever seen. Its crystal clear water reflected the blue morning sky like polished glass. Mist drifted lazily above its surface. White swans glided gracefully through the gentle current. Wildflowers lined both banks in brilliant shades of blue, yellow, and white. The river moved peacefully, never rushing, never standing still, as though it understood exactly where it was going. A weathered wooden sign stood beside the path. Its carved letters had softened with age. Whispering River. Asterisk. Every crossing changes both shores. Asterisk. Ethan rested his hand upon the sign. He quietly repeated the words. Every crossing changes both shores. The sentence lingered in his thoughts. Across the river, a small village rested upon the opposite bank. Its cottages overlooked the water. Tiny boats drifted beside long wooden docks. Smoke curled lazily from stone chimneys. Children laughed as they skipped smooth stones across the river. Everything looked peaceful. Everything looked welcoming. But there was one problem. No bridge. Only the wide river stretched between Ethan and the village. He looked up and down the shoreline. No ferry approached. No boat crossed the water. Only the gentle current flowed endlessly toward the horizon. Then, a sound echoed from farther downstream. Tap, tap, scrape, tap. Someone was working. Curious, Ethan followed the sound along the riverbank. The path curved beneath tall willow trees whose branches brushed the surface of the water. Soon, he reached a quiet little cove. There, beneath the shade of an enormous willow, stood a modest wooden boathouse. Its doors were wide open. The scent of fresh cedar drifted into the morning air. Inside, a man gently sanded the curved side of a small wooden boat. He worked slowly, carefully. Each movement seemed almost musical. Not hurried, not forced, simply patient. Sunlight streamed through the open doorway, filling the workshop with warm golden light. Finished boats rested quietly along one wall. Some were large enough for families. Others were tiny rowboats. One little boat looked no bigger than a child's cradle. Every one of them had been polished until the wood seemed to glow. The craftsman looked up. His silver-streaked hair caught the morning light. His eyes carried the calmness of someone who had spent many years listening to rivers. He smiled. "Good morning, traveler." Ethan returned the smile. "Good morning." The man gently set down his sanding block. "You've come to cross the Whispering River." "I have." The craftsman looked toward the flowing water. "So has everyone." Ethan blinked. "I'm sorry." The old man chuckled softly. "Every person who arrives here." He smiled kindly. "Is crossing something." The breeze stirred the willow branches. Episode 14. The Boat Builder Who Carried Dreams Across the River. Part 2. The Boat That Waited for No Passenger. Morning sunlight danced across the surface of the Whispering River. Tiny ripples carried reflections of drifting clouds. Willow branches swayed gently above the quiet cove. The old boathouse stood peacefully beside the water. Its open doors welcomed the fresh river breeze. Inside, Finn carefully brushed the last traces of cedar dust from the small wooden boat resting before him. The boat was simple, graceful. Its curved sides caught the sunlight with a warm, honey-colored glow. Ethan stepped closer. "It's beautiful." Finn smiled. "She's finished." He rested his hand gently upon the smooth wood. But every finished boat asks the same question. Ethan looked curious. "What question?" Finn chuckled softly. "Who will I help?" For a moment, neither of them spoke. The only sound was the gentle murmur of the river beyond the doorway. Then Finn reached for a tiny wooden plaque. With careful hands, he fastened it inside the boat. Ethan leaned in to read it. "Cross gently. Return kindly. Asterisk asterisk." The words were simple, yet they seemed to belong to the river itself. "Do you carve a message into every boat?" Finn nodded. "Everyone." "Why?" "Because people often remember what they read, long after they've forgotten." "Who carved it?" Ethan smiled. That reminded him of rowing, and the blueprint hidden beneath the cottage floor. Some lessons were meant to stay quietly behind. Just then, a little boy hurried down the riverbank carrying a basket almost as large as himself. "Mr. Finn," he called, slightly out of breath. "I brought breakfast." Finn laughed warmly. "Thank you, Leo." The boy carefully placed the basket on a workbench. Inside were fresh rolls, apples, cheese, and a small jar of wildflower honey. "My grandmother said you'd forget to eat again." Finn grinned. "She's probably right." Leo noticed Ethan. "Are you crossing today?" "I think so," Ethan replied. The boy nodded thoughtfully. "Everyone says that at first." "What do you mean?" Leo pointed toward the river. "They think they're crossing to reach the other side." He smiled. "But they always come back. A little different." With that, he waved goodbye and ran back toward the village. Finn watched him disappear along the path. "Wise child," he said softly. Ethan nodded. "He reminds me of someone." Finn smiled knowingly. The best villages usually do. After breakfast, Finn carried the newly finished boat outside. Instead of tying it securely to the dock, he gently lowered it into the water. The boat floated perfectly, rocking almost imperceptibly with the current. Ethan waited for Finn to climb aboard, but he didn't. He simply stood quietly on the dock, watching. "The boat is ready," Ethan said. "It is. Aren't you taking it across?" Finn shook his head. "No." Ethan frowned slightly. "But what if no one comes?" Finn looked at the drifting current. "Then it waits." "For how long?" "As long as necessary." Ethan glanced at the empty boat. It floated peacefully beside the dock, patient, unhurried, almost as though it trusted the river completely. "You don't worry," Finn smiled. "A boat built with care never fears waiting." He looked toward Ethan. "It knows its traveler will arrive when the time is right." The words settled gently into the morning air. Just then, an elderly woman appeared at the end of the path. She walked slowly with the help of a wooden cane. Finn immediately stepped forward. Without a word, he steadied the little boat, offered his hand, and helped her aboard. She smiled gratefully. "I've crossed this river for 40 years," she said, "and you still hold the boat, as though it's my first time." Finn bowed his head slightly. "Every crossing deserves the same kindness." The woman smiled. Then she pushed gently away from the dock. Episode 14. The Boat Builder Who Carried Dreams Across the River. Part 3. The Oar That Moved in Silence. The whispering river shimmered beneath the late morning sun. Gentle ripples sparkled like scattered pieces of silver. Dragonflies drifted gracefully above the water. A pair of white swans floated quietly downstream. The little boat carrying the elderly woman had already disappeared beyond the willow trees. Only its fading wake remained. Ethan stood beside Finn on the old wooden dock. Neither of them hurried to speak. The river seemed to enjoy silence, and somehow, anyone who stood beside it soon did too. After a while, Finn walked back into the boathouse. He returned carrying two beautifully carved wooden oars. Their cedar handles were smooth from years of careful use. Small waves had been delicately carved near each blade. Ethan admired them. "They're beautiful." Finn smiled. "My father always said, if your hands will hold something every day, make it worthy of being held." He offered one of the oars to Ethan. It felt surprisingly light, perfectly balanced, almost as though it already knew the rhythm of the river. Ethan noticed tiny words carved along the handle. "Listen before you row." He looked up. "What does that mean?" Finn chuckled softly. "Most people think crossing a river begins when the boat leaves the shore." He gently dipped his own oar into the water. "It begins when you first learn to listen." They climbed into a small cedar boat tied beside the dock. Finn untied the rope. The current gently welcomed them away from the shore. For several moments, he didn't row. The boat simply drifted. The only sounds were the soft movement of water, the rustling willow branches, and birds singing from the treetops. Ethan finally whispered, "Why aren't we rowing?" Finn smiled without looking up. "Can you hear it? The river, the silence inside it." Ethan closed his eyes. At first, he heard only water. Then, he noticed something more. The gentle tapping of reeds against the shore. A kingfisher diving into the river. The distant laughter of children. The breeze passing through willow leaves. Even the slow creak of the wooden boat. Everything belonged together. Nothing competed to be heard. Finn nodded. "Now, the river knows we're listening." Only then did he place his oar into the water. Splash. One smooth stroke. The boat glided forward effortlessly. No hurried movements. No heavy splashing. Just calm, steady rhythm. Ethan copied him. His first stroke sent a spray of water across the side of the boat. Finn only smiled. The river forgives beginners. Ethan laughed softly. His second stroke was gentler. The third, better still. Soon, the boat moved as though both oars shared the same quiet heartbeat. As they rounded a bend, they noticed a young boy sitting alone on a weathered dock. His small fishing rod rested beside him, but the line remained untouched. Finn guided the boat toward the shore. "Good morning, Noah." The boy looked up. "Oh, hello, Mr. Finn. You seem thoughtful today." Noah shrugged. "I wanted to teach my little sister how to fish, but she's afraid of the boat." Finn nodded gently. Fear can feel very real. He reached beneath the seat and lifted out a tiny carved wooden fish. It fit perfectly into the palm of his hand. He handed it to Noah. "When she holds this, tell her it belonged to someone who was afraid once too." Noah turned the little fish over in his hands. "Did it?" Finn smiled. "It belonged to me." The boy's eyes widened. "You? When I was younger than you. What changed?" Finn looked across the peaceful river. "Someone patient crossed beside me." Noah smiled. "I think she'll like this." "I'm sure she will." The little boat drifted away from the dock once more. Ethan looked at Finn. "You kept that all these years?" Finn nodded. "Sometimes the smallest gifts carry the longest courage." The boat continued downstream. Sunlight shimmered across the water. The oars dipped quietly into the river. Splash, glide, splash, glide. Their gentle rhythm became almost like breathing. Ethan realized something. Since leaving the dock, Finn had never once told the river where to go. He had only worked with its current, not against it. The old boat builder noticed Ethan smiling. "What are you thinking?" Ethan looked toward the endless river ahead. "I'm beginning to understand. You don't cross a river by fighting the water." Finn's eyes sparkled, and Ethan rested his oar across his knees. "You cross it by learning its rhythm." Finn smiled warmly. The whispering river flowed quietly onward, as though it had been waiting for Ethan to discover that lesson all along. To be continued. Episode 14. The Boat Builder Who Carried Dreams Across the River. Part 4. The Island That Waited in the Middle. The little cedar boat drifted peacefully with the current. Splash, glide, splash, glide. Each gentle stroke of the oars blended with the quiet song of the whispering river. The morning sun climbed higher into the sky. Its warm light sparkled across the water like scattered pieces of gold. Willow branches slowly gave way to tall reeds. Wild irises bloomed along the shoreline. A blue heron stood perfectly still at the river's edge, watching, waiting, patient. Finn rested his oar across the side of the boat. "We're almost there." Ethan looked ahead. "I don't see another village." Finn smiled. "You aren't looking for a village." The river curved gently around a bend. Then, something unexpected appeared. At the very center of the whispering river rested a small island. It wasn't large, just a peaceful patch of green surrounded by flowing water. Ancient willow trees leaned gracefully over its banks. Wildflowers covered the open meadow. A tiny wooden bench sat beneath the largest tree, and in the middle of the island, a single stone cairn stood quietly. Smooth river stones had been stacked carefully, one upon another. No names, no signs, no fences, only silence. The boat glided gently toward a narrow wooden dock. Finn stepped ashore first, then offered his hand to Ethan. "What is this place?" Ethan asked softly. Finn looked around the little island with a peaceful smile. "We call it the Middle Shore." "The Middle?" Finn nodded. "Because everyone believes life is only about beginnings or endings. He looked toward the flowing river, but many of the most important moments happened somewhere in between. The breeze whispered through the willow leaves. Tiny white blossoms floated gently to the ground. Neither of them hurried to speak. After a while, they walked toward the stone cairn. As Ethan drew closer, he noticed something unusual. Around the base of the stacked stones rested dozens of tiny objects. A feather, a smooth shell, a faded ribbon, a carved wooden bird, a pressed flower, a polished acorn, each one simple, each one placed with care. What are these? Finn gently picked up a smooth white pebble. They're reminders. Of what? He smiled. Of moments people chose not to forget. Ethan knelt beside the cairn. None of the objects looked expensive, yet every one felt deeply treasured. Finn continued quietly. A young woman left the ribbon. On the day she forgave her father, the feather belonged to a sailor who finally stopped fearing storms. The shell was placed here by a child who learned that saying goodbye doesn't mean love disappears. The island became wonderfully still. Even the birds seemed to sing more softly here. Ethan reached into his backpack. For a moment, his fingers rested upon the smooth river stone from his very first journey, then upon the pressed lavender, the silver tuning fork, the tiny wooden key. He smiled. No, the little island seemed to hold every memory, without trying to keep anyone there. Ethan sat down on the wooden bench beneath the oldest willow tree. The river flowed on both sides, always moving, never stopping. Finn joined him. My mother once told me, he said softly, the river teaches something the road never can. Ethan listened. A road asks you to keep walking, but a river reminds you that resting for a while is also part of the journey. The words settled gently into Ethan's heart. He closed his eyes. The breeze brushed against his face. The leaves whispered overhead. The current flowed steadily beside him. For the first time in many days, he wasn't thinking about where he had been or where he would go next. He was simply grateful to be exactly where he was, in the quiet middle, where healing often begins, long before anyone notices. To be continued. Episode 14, The Boat Builder Who Carried Dreams Across the River. Part 5, The Lanterns That Floated Without Fear. The little island rested peacefully in the heart of the whispering river. Willow leaves swayed gently above the quiet bench. The stone cairn stood exactly as it always had. Patient, steady, listening. Ethan remained seated beneath the ancient willow. The cool breeze carried the scent of fresh water and wild mint growing along the shoreline. For a while, neither he nor Finn spoke. Some places asked nothing from visitors. They simply welcomed them. Eventually, Finn stood and smiled. There's something I'd like you to see. Together, they returned to the little cedar boat. The river greeted them once again with its soft rhythm. Splash, glide, splash, glide. The current carried them farther downstream. As the afternoon slowly softened into evening, the sky became painted with warm shades of gold and rose. The river reflected every color perfectly. It looked almost like a second sky flowing beneath the first. Soon, the boat rounded another gentle bend. Ahead, a small wooden dock extended into the river. Dozens of people had quietly gathered there. Families, children, grandparents, travelers. No musicians played. No speeches were given. Everyone simply waited with peaceful smiles. Ethan noticed that each person held a tiny paper lantern. Some were round, others square. Some were painted with delicate flowers. Others carried only simple patterns. Every lantern held a small golden candle inside. Finn guided the boat toward the dock. "What is this?" Ethan whispered. Finn stepped ashore. "Tonight," he replied softly, "is the evening of gentle currents." The villagers greeted one another with warm nods. No one seemed hurried. Children carefully protected the little flames from the breeze with both hands. An elderly man helped a young girl light her lantern. A mother tied a tiny blue ribbon around her son's lantern before kissing his forehead. Ethan watched quietly. What are they celebrating? Finn smiled. Not celebrating. Remembering. He picked up an unpainted lantern from a nearby basket, then handed it to Ethan. Its paper was smooth. Blank. "What do I write?" Ethan asked. "Anything your heart would like to thank." Ethan thought for a long moment. He looked toward the flowing river. Then he gently wrote just 4 words. "Every kindness along my journey." Nothing more. Nothing less. Finn looked at the words and nodded. A beautiful choice. He turned his own lantern toward Ethan. Only one sentence had been written upon it. "May fear never row alone." The evening breeze grew wonderfully still. One by one, the villagers knelt beside the river. Each person gently placed their lantern upon the water. No one pushed. No one rushed. They simply released them. The current accepted every tiny light. Soon, dozens of glowing lanterns floated together downstream. Golden reflections danced across the gentle waves. The river became a ribbon of quiet stars. Ethan carefully lowered his own lantern onto the water. For a brief moment, it rocked gently beside the dock. Then, without fear, it drifted into the current. He watched it join the others. Some lanterns moved quickly. Others lingered near the shore. None of them tried to become the brightest. Each one simply offered its own little light. A small girl standing nearby tugged gently on Finn's sleeve. "Mr. Finn." "Yes, Lily." "What if my lantern goes out?" Finn knelt beside her, then pointed toward the river. "Look carefully." Lily watched the glowing lights drifting together. "What do you see?" "They're all together." Finn smiled. "Exactly. If one light grows dim, it isn't alone. The others keep shining." Lily smiled. "So, the river helps them?" "The river," Finn replied softly, "helps them stay close enough to remind each other how to glow." Episode 14. The Boat Builder Who Carried Dreams Across the River. Part 6. The Bridge That Was Never Built. Morning returned quietly to the whispering river. A soft silver mist floated just above the water. The last paper lanterns from the evening before had long since disappeared downstream. Only gentle ripples remained. The old boathouse stood peacefully beneath the great willow tree. Its weathered wooden walls glowed softly in the early sunlight. Ethan stepped outside after sharing breakfast with Finn. Fresh bread, wildflower honey, warm herbal tea, simple meals, somehow always tasted richer when shared. Finn was already standing at the edge of the dock. His hands rested behind his back. His eyes followed the slow current. "What are you watching?" Ethan asked. Finn smiled. The river waking up. Ethan listened. At first, he heard only the familiar sound of flowing water. Then, the splash of a fish breaking the surface. The call of a kingfisher from the reeds. The distant laughter of children beginning another day. The whispering river never truly slept. It simply changed its song. After a while, Finn picked up a coil of old rope. "Come," he said, "I want to show you something." Together they followed a narrow path upstream. Wildflowers brushed gently against their boots. Tall grasses swayed in the breeze. Soon, the river narrowed between two rocky cliffs. Massive stone pillars stood on both banks, ancient, covered with moss. Their tops reached toward the sky. Ethan stopped. They looked like the remains of a bridge. Finn nodded. "They are." The traveler looked carefully. Huge carved stones still rested beside the river. Weathered wooden beams lay half-hidden beneath vines. It was clear that long ago, someone had begun building a bridge, but it had never been finished. "What happened?" Ethan asked quietly. Finn rested one hand on the cool stone. "Many years ago, the people wanted a faster way across. So they decided to build the largest bridge the valley had ever seen." He smiled gently. They worked hard, day after day, but before the bridge was finished, an old boat builder came to speak with them. Ethan looked toward Finn. "Your grandfather?" Finn chuckled. "My great-grandfather." "What did he say?" Finn looked out across the flowing river. He asked only one question. If the bridge is built, who will stop long enough to help someone cross? The breeze whispered softly through the tall reeds. Ethan frowned slightly. "I don't understand." Finn picked up a smooth river stone. He tossed it gently into the current. Plop! Small circles spread across the water. "A bridge lets everyone hurry," he said. "A boat asks people to travel together." Ethan remained silent. Finn continued. While people waited for the boat, they talked. They listened. They met strangers. They shared stories. They comforted nervous children. They laughed. They made friends. He smiled warmly. The river wasn't slowing people down. It was introducing them. Ethan looked once more at the unfinished bridge. For the first time, it no longer seemed incomplete. It seemed intentional. So they stopped building it. Finn nodded. The village decided. They didn't need a bridge after all. Instead, they cared for the boats. They cared for one another. And every crossing became a chance to leave someone happier than when they stepped aboard. Just then, a young woman arrived at the riverbank carrying two heavy baskets. Without hesitation, a fisherman preparing his boat walked over. "May I help?" She smiled gratefully. "Thank you." Together, they loaded the baskets into the little boat. Soon another traveler joined them, then an elderly man, then a mother with her little son. For strangers, one boat, one quiet conversation. As the boat drifted away, laughter echoed gently across the water. Ethan watched until it reached the opposite shore. They didn't know each other. He whispered. Finn smiled. "They do now." The old boat builder placed a gentle hand upon one of the ancient stone pillars. "My father used to tell me, some things are easier when we build them." He paused. "Other things become stronger when we choose not to." The unfinished bridge stood peacefully beneath the morning sky. Its weathered stones no longer spoke of failure. They spoke of wisdom. Not every distance needs to disappear. Sometimes, the space between two shores is exactly where kindness finds its way aboard. The whispering river flowed quietly onward, never asking people to rush, only inviting them to cross together. To be continued. Episode 14. The Boat Builder Who Carried Dreams Across the River. Part 7. The Passenger Who Had Forgotten Where Home Was. The whispering river flowed gently beneath the bright afternoon sky. Sunlight shimmered across its peaceful surface. The unfinished bridge stood quietly behind Ethan and Finn. Its weathered stone pillars watched over the river like old guardians. The little ferry drifted steadily from one shore to the other. Each crossing carried more than travelers. It carried conversations, smiles, acts of kindness, and sometimes a little hope. Ethan and Finn slowly walked back toward the boathouse. The familiar scent of cedar greeted them long before they reached the dock. A kingfisher darted across the river. Its blue feathers flashed brilliantly in the sunlight. Everything felt calm, until Ethan noticed someone sitting alone at the end of the dock. An elderly man rested on a worn leather suitcase. His coat was neat but faded. A small hat shaded his thoughtful eyes. He wasn't watching the river. He was staring quietly at the ground, as though searching for something he could no longer remember. Finn slowed his steps. His gentle smile remained. "Good afternoon." The old man looked up. "Oh," he answered softly. "Good afternoon." Finn sat beside him without asking questions. Ethan quietly joined them. For a little while, the three of them simply listened to the water. Finally, the old man spoke. He hesitated. "I think I was going somewhere." Finn nodded gently. "I'm sure you were." The old man looked toward the opposite shore. "I remember crossing this river many years ago." He smiled faintly. There was a bakery nearby, and children feeding ducks. His smile slowly faded. "But I can't remember. Which side was home?" The breeze became wonderfully still. Ethan felt a quiet ache in his heart. Finn did not rush to answer. Instead, he looked across both shores of the whispering river, then asked softly, "Would you like to tell us what you do remember?" The old man's eyes brightened just a little. "My wife loved daisies. We always stopped to watch the swans. There was a little bell somewhere." He laughed quietly. It rang every afternoon, and every Sunday. We shared warm apple pie. He closed his eyes. "I remember all of that. I just can't remember where it happened." Finn listened carefully, not interrupting, not correcting, only listening. When the old man finished, Finn smiled warmly. "You haven't forgotten home." The traveler looked puzzled. "I haven't." Finn shook his head. "You remembered the people, the laughter, the kindness, the moments that made your heart peaceful." He looked toward the flowing river. "Perhaps those were home all along." The old man's eyes slowly filled with tears. Not tears of sadness, but recognition. Ethan quietly reached into his backpack. His fingers found Eleanor's small recipe card. "Bread shared is bread multiplied." He smiled, then remembered Rowan's words. "A home becomes warm because people keep showing up." Perhaps home had never been a building. Perhaps it had always been the love waiting inside it. Just then, a little girl skipped down the dock, carrying a basket of freshly picked daisies. She stopped when she noticed the elderly man. "Would you like one?" she asked. Without waiting for an answer, she gently placed a single daisy into his hand. "My grandmother says, flowers help people remember happy things." The old man looked at the little flower. Its white petals glowed softly in the afternoon light. A gentle smile slowly appeared. "My wife," he whispered. She tucked daisies into her hat. The little girl smiled. I think she must have been very kind. I think, the old man answered quietly. She was. For the first time since Ethan had seen him, the old man's shoulders relaxed. He looked around the riverbank, the boats, the willow trees, the children laughing nearby. I still don't know which shore my house was on. Finn stood and offered his hand. Then today, let this dock be your home for a little while. The old man accepted it. Together, they walked slowly toward the boathouse. Leo ran over carrying 3 cups of warm herbal tea. I made enough for everyone, he announced proudly. Finn smiled. Perfect timing. The 4 of them sat beneath the willow tree. No one asked the old man to remember more. No one hurried him. They simply shared tea, fresh bread, quiet conversation, and the peaceful afternoon. As the whispering river continued its endless journey, Ethan realized something beautiful. Sometimes, the kindest thing we can give someone is not an answer. It is a place where they no longer have to search alone. The river flowed gently onward, carrying every memory it had ever witnessed. Patiently, faithfully, never forgetting, even when people sometimes did. To be continued. Episode 14. The Boat Builder Who Carried Dreams Across the River. Part 8. The boat that carried more than passengers. Morning sunlight shimmered gently across the whispering river. The willow branches swayed in a soft breeze. Tiny ripples carried the reflections of drifting clouds. The boathouse stood quietly beneath the great willow tree. Its weathered cedar walls glowed warmly in the golden light. The elderly man who had shared tea with Ethan and Finn the day before had spent the night in the small guest room above the workshop. He still couldn't remember which shore had once been home, but somehow he no longer seemed afraid. Sometimes being cared for is enough, until memory finds its own way back. Ethan stepped onto the dock. Finn was already preparing the ferry for another day. He carefully checked each rope, ran his hand along the smooth wooden rail, then gently tightened one loose knot. You inspect every boat before sunrise, Ethan observed. Finn smiled. Every morning, even if it crossed safely yesterday, especially then. He looked at the calm water. Yesterday's safe journey doesn't prepare today's boat. His words lingered quietly in Ethan's mind. Soon, the first passengers began arriving. A young mother carrying her sleeping baby, a fisherman with neatly folded nets, an elderly teacher holding a stack of well-loved books, a baker with 2 baskets of fresh bread, a little girl carrying a tiny cage. Inside, a small white dove rested peacefully. Everyone greeted one another warmly. No one seemed like strangers. Finn welcomed each passenger with the same gentle smile. Then Ethan noticed something unusual. Before anyone boarded, Finn quietly asked each person the same simple question. Is there anything you're carrying that someone else could help with today? Some smiled. Some laughed softly. Some answered immediately. The baker handed 1 basket of bread to the fisherman. The teacher offered to hold the little girl's bird cage. The mother gratefully accepted help carrying her blanket. Without being instructed, the passengers naturally began helping one another. When everyone was comfortably aboard, the ferry drifted away from the dock. Splash, glide, splash, glide. The morning crossing began. For a while, only the gentle rhythm of the oars could be heard. Then, the little girl looked at Ethan. Would you like to meet Snow? She carefully lifted the tiny white dove from its cage. The bird perched calmly upon her finger. "She's beautiful," Ethan said. "She's going home today." The girl smiled. "My grandfather found her with an injured wing. He cared for her all winter. And now, she's strong enough to fly again." Ethan gently stroked the dove's soft feathers. She didn't seem frightened, only peaceful. Across from them, the elderly teacher closed one of his books. "My students always ask, 'Why do birds return home?'" He smiled. "I tell them, because they remember that freedom and belonging can live together." Everyone nodded thoughtfully. The baker broke a warm loaf of bread into small pieces. Without saying a word, he shared it with everyone aboard. Soon, conversation flowed as naturally as the river itself. Stories, recipes, childhood memories, laughter. Even the quiet elderly man from yesterday smiled as he listened. He still couldn't remember which village had once been his, but he remembered how to laugh. Halfway across the river, the little girl opened Snow's cage. She looked toward Finn. "I think she's ready." Finn nodded gently. "I think you are too." The girl lifted her hands. For one quiet heartbeat, the dove remained still. Then, with a graceful sweep of white wings, she rose into the bright morning sky. Higher, higher, until she circled once above the ferry. Everyone looked up. The bird turned toward the distant hills, then disappeared into the endless blue. The little girl didn't cry. She simply smiled. "Goodbye, Snow." The passengers stood quietly together, watching until the last white feather faded from sight. Finn rested his oar across his knees. "My father used to say, 'A good boat carries people across the river.'" He looked around at the smiling passengers. "A great boat helps them leave lighter than they arrive." Ethan looked at everyone aboard. The baskets felt lighter. The conversations had become warmer. The strangers no longer seemed like strangers. Nothing about the ferry itself had changed. It was still made of cedar, still floated upon the same river, still followed the same current. Yet somehow, every crossing quietly transformed the hearts it carried. As the ferry reached the opposite shore, the passengers stepped onto the dock one by one. Before leaving, each of them thanked someone, not only Finn, but one another. The baker thanked the teacher. The fisherman thanked the mother. The little girl hugged the elderly man. He smiled warmly. "I think," he whispered, "I remembered something today." "What was it?" she asked. He looked around at the cheerful faces. "I've always been happiest where kindness is shared." The whispering river sparkled beneath the afternoon sun. Its current flowed gently onward, carrying boats, carrying dreams, and quietly reminding every traveler that sometimes the greatest journeys are measured, not by the distance between two shores, but by the goodness we carry across them. To be continued. Episode 14, The Boat Builder Who Carried Dreams Across the River. Part 9, The Compass That Pointed Across the Water. The whispering river shimmered beneath the gentle afternoon sun. The ferry had just completed another peaceful crossing. Passengers waved their goodbyes as they disappeared along the flower-lined paths of the opposite shore. The little dock grew quiet once again. Only the soft murmur of flowing water remained. Splash, splash. A pair of ducks glided lazily through the reeds. Ethan helped Finn secure the ferry with a thick hemp rope. The old boat builder smiled. "You've learned quickly." Ethan laughed softly. "I've had a good teacher." Finn shook his head. The river has been teaching both of us." They walked back toward the boathouse. Inside, the familiar scent of cedar and linseed oil filled the air. Sunlight poured through the workshop windows, casting warm golden beams across half-finished boats. Along one wall hung rows of carefully carved oars. On another rested shelves filled with tools polished by generations of use. As Ethan looked around, something unusual caught his eye. High on the top shelf, resting inside a small glass case, was an old brass compass. Unlike any compass he had ever seen, its needle moved slowly, not spinning wildly, not pointing north. Instead, it seemed to drift gently across the face of the compass, almost as though it were searching for something unseen. Ethan stepped closer. "That's different." Finn followed his gaze. A warm smile spread across his face. "You noticed. What does it point to?" Finn carefully lifted the compass from its case. He placed it in Ethan's hands. The brass felt cool and surprisingly heavy. The needle slowly settled, not toward the mountains, not toward the sea. It pointed directly toward the river. "It doesn't point north." Ethan whispered. "No." Finn replied. "It never has." "Then what does it do?" The old boat builder looked through the open doorway at the flowing water. "My grandfather made this compass. He believed that not every traveler is searching for a place. Some are searching for the courage to cross." Ethan looked down at the quiet needle. "So it always points to the river?" Finn nodded. "Because every meaningful journey asks us to cross something. Fear, doubt, grief, loneliness, forgiveness. The river simply reminds us that staying on one shore forever isn't living." For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The compass rested quietly in Ethan's palm. Its needle remained perfectly still. Then, a hurried knock echoed at the workshop door. Tap, tap, tap. Leo rushed inside, slightly out of breath. "Mr. Finn, there's a little problem." Finn smiled calmly. "There usually is." Leo pointed toward the dock. "A young boy wants to visit his grandmother across the river, but he's afraid to cross alone." Finn nodded gently. "Let's go." When they reached the dock, a small boy stood clutching a folded letter against his chest. His name was Oliver. He couldn't have been more than 8 years old. He stared nervously at the gently rocking ferry. "My grandmother isn't feeling well," he whispered. "I promised I'd bring her this letter, but I've never crossed by myself." Finn knelt beside him. "Would you like to know a secret?" Oliver nodded. Finn held up the old brass compass. "This compass doesn't point toward places. It points toward brave moments." The little boy looked at it with wide eyes. "Really?" Finn smiled. "Every time someone chooses courage, its journey becomes complete." Oliver looked from the compass to the peaceful river, then back to the letter in his hands. He took a slow breath. "I think I can do it." Finn placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. "You won't be alone." Ethan smiled. "I'll cross with you." Oliver's nervous expression softened. Together, the three of them stepped aboard the little ferry. Finn untied the rope. The boat drifted quietly into the current. Splash, glide, splash, glide. Oliver held the letter carefully with both hands. After a few moments, he looked toward Ethan. "The river isn't as scary once you're moving." Ethan smiled. "I've discovered that about many things." The little boy laughed softly. Halfway across, Oliver glanced back at the shore they had left behind. Then ahead, toward the one waiting for them. The distance suddenly didn't seem so great. Sometimes, the hardest part of any journey isn't the middle. It's taking the very first step away from where we feel safe. The ferry reached the opposite bay. Oliver hurried up the dock before running toward the village. He turned and waved with a bright smile. "Thank you." Finn waved back, then looked toward Ethan. "My grandfather engraved one sentence inside that compass." He carefully opened its small brass cover. Tiny letters shimmered in the afternoon light. "The heart always knows when it's time to cross." The whispering river flowed peacefully onward, its gentle current carrying every traveler, not only toward another shore, but quietly toward another version of themselves. To be continued. Episode 14, The Boat Builder Who Carried Dreams Across the River. Part 10, The Storm That Taught the River to Sing. The afternoon slowly faded into evening. Soft amber light stretched across the whispering river. The ferry rested quietly beside the dock after another peaceful day of crossings. Oliver's grateful wave still lingered warmly in Ethan's thoughts. The old brass compass had been returned to its place inside the glass case. Its needle rested calmly, still pointing toward the river. Finn stood at the end of the dock. His eyes were fixed on the western horizon. Dark clouds had begun gathering above the distant hills. At first, they looked harmless, just soft gray shapes drifting through the sky. But the wind carried a different message. The willow branches swayed more heavily. The reeds along the shoreline bent lower. The river's smooth surface became scattered with tiny ripples. Ethan walked beside Finn. "Do you think it's going to rain?" Finn nodded quietly. "Yes." He smiled gently. "And the river has been waiting for it." Not long afterward, the first drops began to fall. Flip, flip, flip. Small circles spread across the water. The scent of rain filled the air. Travelers on both shores hurried home beneath umbrellas and wide-brimmed hats. Finn untied the last ferry of the day. "There is one more crossing," he said. Just then, a young woman appeared, holding the hand of her elderly father. They had been delayed while visiting relatives in the neighboring village. "I'm so sorry," she called. "We didn't realize the weather would change so quickly." Finn smiled reassuringly. The river still has room for one last journey. The three of them climbed aboard. Ethan joined them. The ferry drifted gently away from the dock. The rain grew steadier. Splash, splash. Soft drops danced upon the river like countless tiny pearls. The wind whispered across the water. Not fierce, not frightening, only stronger than before. Halfway across the river, a distant rumble rolled through the valley. The young woman tightened her grip on the railing. Her father looked toward the dark clouds with quiet concern. Ethan instinctively reached for an oar. Finn placed a calm hand on his shoulder. "Easy," he said softly. "Let the river speak first." They waited. The ferry rose and fell gently with the current. Finn watched the water carefully. Not the sky, not the clouds, only the river. After a moment, he dipped his oar into the water. One smooth stroke, then another. The boat remained steady. The elderly man looked surprised. "I expected rough waves." Finn smiled. "The wind makes noise. The river makes decisions." He pointed toward a line of reeds near the shore. "See how they bend? They're showing us where the current is calm, instead of rowing straight across." Finn guided the ferry along a gentle curve. sheltered by the reeds, protected from the strongest wind. The crossing took a little longer, but every passenger remained dry and at ease. Soon, the opposite dock came into view. The young woman smiled with relief. "I've crossed this river many times," she said. "I never knew there was a quieter path." Finn tied the ferry securely. "The safest way," he replied, "isn't always the shortest." After the passengers stepped ashore, the rain slowly began to fade. The clouds drifted eastward. A ray of golden sunlight broke through the gray sky. Then, something beautiful appeared. A wide rainbow stretched gracefully across the valley. Its colors reflected softly upon the whispering river. Ethan stood quietly beside Finn. The storm wasn't as frightening as I expected. Finn looked toward the rainbow. "Most storms aren't," he smiled. "They simply remind us to pay closer attention." He bent down and picked up a smooth piece of driftwood that had floated onto the shore. Holding it in his hand, he said, "My mother taught me something after every storm." Ethan listened. "Don't ask why the rain came. Ask what it washed clean." The words settled gently into Ethan's heart. He looked at the river. The water now sparkled brighter than before. The air felt fresher. The willow leaves glistened with tiny droplets. Even the birds had returned to their songs. He finally understood. The storm had not silenced the river. It had revealed another melody hidden within it. As evening settled over the valley, the whispering river continued its endless song. Sometimes gentle, sometimes strong, always moving forward, always carrying those willing to trust its rhythm. And Ethan realized, life's storms are not always sent to stop the journey. Sometimes, they simply teach us a wiser way to cross. To be continued. Episode 14, The Boat Builder Who Carried Dreams Across the River. Part 11, The Letter That Floated Back Home. The morning after the rain arrived bright and clear. The whispering river sparkled beneath a sky washed clean by the storm. Every leaf along the willow branches shimmered with tiny drops of sunlight. The air smelled fresh, new, as though the valley itself had taken a deep, peaceful breath. Ethan stepped onto the dock, carrying 2 warm cups of herbal tea. Finn was already there, as always, watching the river. "Good morning," Ethan said. Finn accepted the cup with a grateful smile. "Listen." Ethan became still. The river sounded different. Not louder, not softer, only clearer. The rain had filled the current with a brighter melody. The water slipped over smooth stones with a gentle, musical whisper. "It sings differently today," Ethan observed. Finn nodded. Every journey leaves its voice behind. Before Ethan could ask what he meant, a familiar figure appeared at the end of the riverside path. It was Oliver, the little boy who had crossed the river to visit his grandmother. He waved excitedly as he ran toward the dock. "Mr. Finn." "Ethan." He was smiling so brightly that even the morning seemed warmer. Finn knelt to greet him. "How is your grandmother?" Oliver carefully unfolded a letter he had been holding. "Much better. She asked me to bring this." The envelope was made of thick, cream-colored paper. Across the front, written in careful handwriting, were the words, "For the river that carries kindness." Ethan looked curiously at Finn. The old boat builder smiled. "Would you read it?" Oliver nodded proudly and opened the letter. His young voice carried gently across the quiet water. "To the kind people of the Whispering River. Yesterday my grandson arrived carrying more than a letter. He arrived carrying courage. Someone helped him discover it before he reached my door. I cannot thank the river, but I can thank those who listen to it. May every traveler who crosses beside you arrive with hope and leave with even more. With gratitude, Eleanor rose. Silence settled over the dock. Not empty, only full of warmth. Oliver folded the letter carefully. My grandmother said, "The river deserves a thank you too." Finn smiled. I think it already heard. Just then, a tiny paper boat drifted slowly toward the dock. It had clearly been folded by careful hands. The morning current guided it gently through the reeds until it rested against one of the wooden posts. Oliver picked it up. Inside was another small note, written in blue ink. Kindness always finds its way home. There was no signature, no name, only the message. Ethan turned the paper boat over in his hands. The current brought it back. Finn nodded softly. The river has a funny habit. It returns what people send with love. The little paper boat reminded Ethan of Sophie's gift from the lighthouse many journeys ago. Her tiny paper boat still rested safely inside his backpack. He smiled. Some treasures never stopped traveling. Later that afternoon, several children gathered beside the dock. Each folded a paper boat from brightly colored paper. One carried a drawing of a bird. Another held a tiny flower. One simply said, "Thank you." Together, they placed the little boats upon the river. None of them hurried after them. None of them wondered where they would go. They trusted the current. The boats floated away, one by one. Blue, yellow, green, white, like little wishes carried by gentle water. Finn watched them disappear downstream. My grandmother believed every kind word is like a boat. Ethan looked toward the river. Because it travels? Finn smiled. Yes, and because you never truly know who's sure it will reach. The afternoon breeze stirred the willow branches. The paper boats became tiny dots in the distance, until they finally vanished around the bend. Yet somehow, their kindness did not disappear with them. It remained, quietly, in every heart that had watched them go. The whispering river flowed onward, faithfully carrying letters, boats, memories, and the simple truth that kindness, no matter how small, almost always finds its way back home. To be continued. Episode 14, The Boat Builder Who Carried Dreams Across the River. Part 12, The Boat That Returned Empty but Full. The whispering river welcomed another peaceful dawn. Soft morning mist drifted gently across its surface. The willow trees stood quietly along the banks. Their graceful branches brushed the water as though greeting an old friend. The little paper boats from yesterday had long since disappeared downstream, but their quiet messages still lingered in Ethan's heart. Kindness always finds its way home. He smiled as he repeated the words to himself. At the boathouse, Finn was carefully polishing the ferry's wooden railing. Every slow movement reflected years of loving care. Ethan picked up a clean cloth. "May I help?" Finn handed him another section of the railing. Of course, as they worked, neither felt the need to fill the silence. The gentle sound of cloth against polished cedar was enough. After a while, the first travelers of the morning began arriving. A young artist carrying rolled canvases, an elderly couple holding hands, a farmer with baskets of fresh vegetables, a schoolteacher with several cheerful children. The ferry welcomed them all. Splash, glide, splash, glide. The crossing unfolded peacefully beneath the bright morning sky. Halfway across, the children began counting the swans. The artist quietly sketched the reflections dancing upon the water. The elderly couple smiled at one another without speaking. Sometimes, the happiest conversations need no words. Soon the ferry reached the opposite shore. One by one, the passengers stepped onto the dock. Each offered a warm thank you before continuing their day. Within moments, the ferry was empty. Ethan expected Finn to remain there for a while. Instead, the old boat builder untied the rope once more. "We're going back," he said. "There aren't any passengers." Ethan replied. Finn smiled. "I know." The little ferry drifted away from the dock. Its seats were empty. The breeze moved gently across the open deck. No voices, no baskets, no luggage, only the soft rhythm of the river. Splash, glide, splash, glide. Ethan looked around. "It feels strange." Finn nodded. "It used to feel that way to me too." He rested his oar lightly upon the water. "My father explained it one morning." "What did he say?" Finn looked toward the calm current. "A boat isn't successful because every seat is filled. It's successful because it is always ready when someone needs it." The words drifted gently through the morning air. As the ferry reached the middle of the river, a voice called from the distant bank. "Wait!" A young woman hurried toward the dock, carrying a small basket wrapped in blue cloth. She had clearly been running. "I'm sorry," she called between breaths. "I thought I had missed the ferry." Finn smiled warmly. "You arrived exactly when you needed to." She climbed aboard gratefully. "I promised my grandfather I'd bring him his medicine before noon. I overslept. I was afraid I'd have to wait hours." Finn gently untied the rope once more. No one should have to wait longer than necessary. When kindness can shorten the journey. The ferry turned gracefully toward the opposite shore. The young woman looked around. "I thought the boat was empty." Finn nodded. "It was." She smiled. "So, you crossed just for me?" The old boat builder laughed softly. "We crossed because someone would eventually need crossing." The woman became very quiet. She held her basket a little closer. "Thank you." When they reached the opposite bank, she stepped ashore with tears of gratitude shining gently in her eyes. "I'll never forget this," she whispered, after she disappeared along the riverside path. Ethan looked thoughtfully at the empty seats once more. They weren't empty after all. Finn smiled. No, they were waiting. The ferry slowly returned toward the boathouse beneath the bright afternoon sky. The river sparkled peacefully around them. "My grandfather once carved these words beneath an old boat seat," Finn said quietly. "I found them years later." He pointed toward the wooden bench where Ethan was sitting. Curious, Ethan leaned down, hidden beneath the polished cedar. Tiny letters had been carefully carved long ago. "The greatest journeys are often made for one." Ethan gently traced the faded words with his fingertips. He realized some acts of kindness are never noticed by crowds. No applause follows them. No songs are written about them. Yet to the one person who needed them most, they become unforgettable. The whispering river flowed softly beneath the afternoon sun. Its current carried the little ferry onward, sometimes full, sometimes empty, but always ready to be continued. Episode 14, The Boat Builder Who Carried Dreams Across the River. Part 13. The shore where every goodbye became a promise. The afternoon sunlight settled softly across the whispering river. Golden reflections shimmered upon the gentle current. The ferry rocked peacefully beside the dock after another day of quiet crossings. A cool breeze carried the scent of cedar, fresh water, and blooming wildflowers. Ethan helped Finn coil the thick hemp ropes. Every knot was tied carefully, every oar returned to its proper place. The boathouse slowly grew quiet. Just as they were about to close the doors, a familiar whistle echoed from farther down the riverbank. Finn smiled. Right on time. An elderly woman approached with a woven basket hanging from her arm. Inside were freshly baked blackberry pies. Behind her walked a middle-aged man carrying a weathered leather satchel. A young soldier followed quietly. Then came a little girl holding her father's hand. One by one, more people arrived. Some carried flowers. Others held letters. A few brought nothing at all. Ethan looked around curiously. Is there a festival today? Finn shook his head. No, it's farewell evening. The traveler tilted his head. Farewell. Finn nodded. Once every season, people gather here to say goodbye. Ethan glanced around, but no one seemed sad. They're not. Finn replied gently. They've learned that goodbye doesn't have to mean the end. As the sun lowered toward the horizon, everyone gathered beside a quiet stretch of shoreline. A simple wooden bench faced the river. Behind it stood an old maple tree. Its broad branches offered gentle shade throughout the year. The elderly woman placed one blackberry pie upon the bench. My grandson begins his apprenticeship tomorrow. She smiled proudly. I promised I'd save his favorite pie until he comes home. The soldier carefully tied a blue ribbon around one of the maple branches. I'm leaving to serve in the northern valley, he said softly. When I return, I'll untie it myself. The little girl stepped forward next. She tucked a tiny seashell beneath the roots of the tree. My cousin is moving away, she whispered, but she promised. We'll collect shells together again someday. No one cried. No one hurried. Each farewell carried hope instead of fear. Ethan watched quietly, then asked, Why do you call this place the Shore of Promises? Finn smiled. Because every goodbye spoken here must be followed by something worth looking forward to. The breeze gently stirred the ribbons hanging from the maple tree. Blue, white, golden, green. Each one waited patiently, like promises that trusted time. As twilight settled across the valley, Finn reached into his pocket. He removed a small, folded piece of parchment. Its edges had grown soft with age. I've carried this for many years, he admitted. Ethan looked surprised. You never opened it? Finn smiled. I wrote it. Then he unfolded the paper. The ink had faded slightly, but the words remained clear. He read aloud. To whoever crosses this river after me, may you leave every shore with gratitude and arrive at every new shore with kindness. If someone waves goodbye, wave back with hope, because every promise kept becomes a bridge no river can wash away. Silence settled over the gathering. The whispering river flowed steadily beside them, carrying the final light of the setting sun. The young soldier quietly folded his hands. The elderly woman smiled toward the opposite shore. The little girl squeezed her father's hand. Ethan looked across the river. He remembered leaving the lighthouse, the violin workshop, the clockmaker's village, Hearth Glen, Every farewell had seemed difficult at first, yet each one had gently carried him toward another beautiful beginning. Perhaps goodbyes were not doors closing. Perhaps they were gentle invitations to meet again with fuller hearts. The first evening star appeared above the river. Its reflection shimmered softly upon the water. Finn stood beside Ethan. My father always ended every farewell the same way. He said, "What did he say?" Finn smiled warmly. He looked across the endless current, then quietly whispered, "Until the river brings us together again." The whispering river carried those words downstream, past willow trees, past quiet docks, past every shore it had ever touched, leaving behind one peaceful reminder. Every heartfelt goodbye can become tomorrow's joyful hello. To be continued. Episode 14, The Boat Builder Who Carried Dreams Across the River. Part 14, The Boat That Crossed Beneath the Morning Stars. The whispering river rested beneath a sky filled with stars. The village still slept peacefully. Not a window glowed, not a chimney stirred. Only the river remained awake. Its gentle current reflected hundreds of tiny stars upon the dark water. They shimmered so brightly, it seemed as though another sky flowed quietly beneath the boat docks. Ethan awoke to the soft sound of footsteps outside the guest room. Tap, tap, tap. He looked through the window. A warm lantern moved slowly toward the boathouse. It was Finn. Curious, Ethan quietly dressed and stepped outside. The cool morning air carried the fresh scent of cedar and river mist. Finn smiled when he saw him. "I hoped you might wake early. Where are we going?" Ethan asked. The old boat builder lifted a small lantern. To make the day's first crossing. Ethan glanced toward the eastern horizon. "It isn't morning yet." Finn nodded. "Not quite." They untied the little cedar ferry. The lantern rested at the bow, casting a soft golden circle across the water. Splash, glide, splash, glide. The boat drifted silently into the sleeping river. There were no passengers, no voices, only the quiet rhythm of the oars. Above them, countless stars sparkled in the clear sky. Below them, those same stars danced gently upon the surface of the whispering river. For a long while, neither Ethan nor Finn spoke. The silence felt complete. Eventually, Ethan whispered, "Why do we cross before sunrise?" Finn rested his oar across his knees. "My grandfather began every day this way. He believed the first crossing should never be hurried." He smiled toward the stars. "It reminds the river that we are grateful for another morning." The little ferry continued downstream. As they reached the middle of the river, Finn quietly extinguished the lantern. At first, everything became wonderfully dark. Then Ethan noticed something extraordinary. Without the lantern's glow, the stars reflected even more brightly upon the water. The entire river shimmered like a pathway of light. "It feels," Ethan whispered, "as though we're rowing through the sky." Finn nodded gently. "Sometimes, our own light is useful." He looked upward. "But sometimes, we must dim it for a while, so we can see the light already surrounding us." The words lingered peacefully between them. Just then, a soft splash echoed nearby. A family of otters glided playfully beside the ferry. One tiny pup paused long enough to look curiously at Ethan, then disappeared beneath the silver water. Ethan smiled. Even the smallest creatures seemed unafraid here. Soon, A faint ribbon of pale blue appeared along the eastern horizon. Night slowly loosened its hold. The stars began fading one by one, but before the last of them disappeared, Finn pointed toward the sky. Look, high above, one brilliant morning star still shone brightly. Its reflection stretched across the calm river, touching the bow of the little ferry. My mother loved that star, Finn said quietly. She called it the traveler's goodbye. Ethan looked surprised. Goodbye. Finn smiled. Because it stays until the sun is ready. It never leaves too early. It simply makes room for a brighter light. The first golden rays of sunrise spilled gently across the valley. Birdsong awakened in the willow trees. Mist lifted from the river like a soft white veil. The little ferry reached the opposite shore just as the first villagers opened their doors. A baker waved cheerfully from the riverside path. A shepherd greeted them with a smile. The new day had begun. Finn tied the ferry to the dock, then looked back across the glowing river. My grandfather once carved something into the very first boat he ever built. He said, the words faded long ago, but I still remember them. He closed his eyes for a moment, then softly recited, begin each day before the world grows busy. Listen before you speak. Notice before you hurry. And give thanks before asking for anything more. Ethan breathed in the cool morning air. The river sparkled beneath the newborn sun. He realized some of life's most beautiful moments happen before most people are awake to see them. The whispering river continued flowing gently onward, carrying the last goodbye of the stars and the first hello of the morning. To be continued. Episode 14. The Boat Builder Who Carried Dreams Across the River. Part 15. The Gift the River Never Kept. The sunrise slowly wrapped the whispering river in warm shades of gold. Morning mist drifted away like a gentle farewell. The willow trees shimmered softly as tiny drops of dew caught the light. The village had fully awakened. The scent of fresh bread floated through the air. Fishing boats slipped quietly away from the docks. Children laughed as they hurried along the riverside path toward school. The little ferry rested peacefully beside the boathouse. Its cedar planks still glistened from the early crossing beneath the stars. Ethan helped Finn wipe the last traces of moisture from the wooden seats. As they worked, a young woman approached the dock carrying a woven basket. Inside were ripe peaches and freshly baked rolls. She smiled warmly. These are for you, Mr. Finn. Finn accepted the basket with gratitude. Thank you, Hannah. You've already thanked me. She laughed softly. I know, but my mother says, gratitude grows stronger when it's repeated. After she continued on her way, Finn looked at the basket for a moment. Then, without hesitation, he picked up half the peaches and several rolls. Come, he said. Together they walked toward an elderly fisherman repairing his worn nets. Finn quietly placed the fruit beside him. The fisherman looked up in surprise. You didn't have to do that. Finn smiled. I know. A little farther along, they met the village teacher preparing lessons beneath the shade of a willow. Finn left 2 fresh rolls on her table. Before she could thank him, he simply tipped his hat and continued walking. Soon, the basket held only 1 peach. Ethan couldn't help smiling. You've almost given everything away. Finn nodded. The river taught me that. They returned to the dock. Finn sat quietly at the edge, watching the current. My grandfather once asked me, "Do you know why the river never grows poor?" Ethan sat beside him. "Why?" Finn pointed toward the flowing water. "It never keeps what it's meant to carry." The words drifted gently across the morning breeze. Just then, Leo came running toward them. He held something carefully wrapped in soft blue cloth. "Mr. Finn, I finished it." Finn unfolded the cloth. Inside rested a beautifully carved miniature boat. Its tiny sail had been shaped from polished maple wood. Across the bottom, Leo had carefully engraved, "Carry joy forward." Finn's eyes sparkled with quiet pride. "It's beautiful." Leo looked down shyly. "I wanted to thank you for teaching me." Finn gently handed the little boat back. "I'll treasure it," he said. "But first, I think someone else needs it." At that very moment, a small boy arrived at the dock holding tightly to his mother's hand. He looked frightened. It was his very first time crossing the Whispering River. Finn knelt beside him. "Would you hold something for me during the journey?" The little boy nodded nervously. Finn placed Leo's tiny wooden boat into his hands. "This little boat has already learned that courage grows when it's shared." The boy smiled for the first time. He carefully held the miniature boat against his chest as he stepped aboard the ferry. Throughout the crossing, his fears slowly faded. When they reached the opposite shore, he looked back at Finn. "I think I'm brave enough now." Finn smiled warmly. "I thought you might be." The little boy carefully returned the tiny boat. Leo, who had quietly watched the entire crossing from the dock, whispered, "It made someone smile." Finn nodded. "Then it has already become more valuable." Ethan looked at the flowing river. He finally understood. The peaches, the bread, the little wooden boat. None of them had become smaller because they were shared. Somehow, they had all become greater. The Whispering River carried leaves, boats, paper lanterns, and quiet acts of kindness. Yet it never clung to any of them. It simply helped them continue their journey. Finn looked across the sparkling water. "My mother left me one final lesson," he said softly. "The gifts you hold too tightly eventually grow heavy. The gifts you pass along become part of someone else's happiness." The breeze stirred the willow branches. A single golden leaf drifted onto the river. The current welcomed it gently, carrying it toward places unseen. Ethan watched until it disappeared around the bend. Some treasures are meant to be kept. Others reveal their greatest beauty only after they have been given away. To be continued. Episode 14. The Boat Builder Who Carried Dreams Across the River. Part 16. Finale. The first golden light of morning spread gently across the Whispering River. A soft mist hovered above the calm water. The willow trees bowed gracefully in the breeze. Birdsong welcomed another peaceful day. It was time. Ethan stood beside the old cedar ferry with his backpack resting comfortably on his shoulders. Inside, the quiet treasures from every journey traveled with him once again. The smooth river stone, the white seashell, the pressed lavender blossom, the tiny wooden windmill, the bottle of spring water, the cedar bookmark engraved with. Walk gently, listen deeply. The bronze key of quiet hearts, the morning bell, the silver bell bracelet, the golden ribbon, the wooden tree token, the journey bundle, the wildflower seed, the compass that pointed toward kindness, the blue sea glass, the amber sea glass, the bottle of white sand, Sophie's little paper boat, Captain's white feather, the silver compass that pointed to the center, Grace's lavender, the letter hidden inside the violin, the smooth maple wood, Oliver's notebook, the silver tuning fork engraved with. Find the note that brings peace. The old violin, the brass pocket sundial, the embroidered linen, the tiny bottle of golden sand, the notebook that remembered meaningful hours, the little brass gear, Lily's paper clock, the tiny wooden key that opened no lock, the unfinished heart that now proudly read, "You belong here," the cedar seeds, Eleanor's recipe card, the key of Hearth Glen engraved with, "Welcome begins with you," the old brass compass engraved with, "The heart always knows when it's time to cross," Leo's miniature wooden boat engraved with, "Carry joy forward," a tiny folded paper boat that read, "Kindness always finds its way home." None of these treasures could carry him across a river, but together they had quietly carried him across fear, loneliness, uncertainty, and toward a gentler understanding of life. Finn stood waiting at the end of the dock. Beside him gathered many familiar faces. Leo, Oliver, the little girl who had released Snow the White Dove, the baker, the fisherman, the village teacher, the elderly man who had once forgotten which shore was home. Now, he smiled with quiet confidence. Perhaps he still didn't remember every detail of the past, but he had found peace in the present. No one hurried the farewell. The whispering river continued its endless song. Softly, patiently, faithfully, Leo stepped forward first. He handed Ethan a small glass bottle sealed with a cork. Inside, river water sparkled in the morning light. Floating gently within it was a single white feather. "What is it?" Ethan asked. Leo smiled. The feather came from Snow, the day she flew home. "My grandfather says, some journeys deserve to be remembered exactly as they felt." Ethan accepted the little bottle carefully. "I'll treasure it." Next, the elderly teacher stepped forward. She placed a folded sheet of music inside Ethan's journal. Its title simply read, "The River's Song." "There aren't any notes written yet," she said with a smile, "because every traveler hears the melody differently. You must finish it someday." Ethan nodded gently. "I'll try." Oliver came forward carrying the same cream-colored envelope his grandmother had once sent. Inside, he had written only one sentence, in careful handwriting, "Cross toward kindness, and you will never lose your way." Ethan folded the note and placed it safely inside his backpack. At last, Finn stepped forward. In his hands rested one of the beautifully carved cedar oars. For a brief moment, Ethan wondered if Finn intended to give it to him. Instead, the old boat builder lowered the oar into the river. He let its blade rest quietly beneath the flowing water. Then he lifted it again. Tiny droplets shimmered like diamonds in the morning sun. "My grandfather taught me this," he said softly, before every farewell. The river became wonderfully still. Even the breeze seemed to pause among the willow branches. Finn looked at Ethan with warm, peaceful eyes, then slowly spoke. "May every river you meet teach you patience before progress. May every crossing remind you that courage is often only one gentle step away. May your hands remain ready to help another traveler aboard. And whenever life carries you beyond familiar shores, may kindness always become the current that brings you home." Silence settled over the dock. Not empty, only full. Ethan lowered his eyes. he realized the greatest lesson the Whispering River had offered was never about boats, or crossings, or distant shores. It was about trust, the quiet trust that life keeps moving, that people can help one another across unseen waters, and that no journey is truly made alone. He looked once more at the old boathouse, the willow tree, the unfinished bridge, the middle shore, the ferry waiting peacefully at the dock. Nothing asked to be remembered, yet everything would be. Ethan smiled. He stepped onto the forest path beyond the river. The sound of flowing water slowly faded behind him. Ahead, the path climbed gently toward rolling green hills. Beyond them, bright fields of golden wheat swayed beneath the morning breeze. In the distance, a tall stone windmill turned slowly against the blue sky. Its great wooden sails caught the sunlight with every graceful rotation. The breeze carried a new sound. Not waves, not violins, not clocks, not hammers, not the river. It was the soft whisper of grain brushing against grain. A peaceful rhythm, like countless voices working together. Ethan paused, closed his eyes, and listened. A quiet smile appeared on his face. Some journeys teach us how to cross. Others teach us how to grow. He adjusted his backpack, turned toward the distant windmill, and continued walking toward another gentle story waiting to be shared. To be continued. Next journey, episode 15. The miller who turned worries into bread. Like grain carried by the wind, our worries may seem scattered, but with patience, kindness, and caring hands, even the heaviest burdens can become something that nourishes many hearts. Thank you for walking beside Ethan once again. May you cross every challenge with courage, welcome every traveler with kindness, and always become a safe shore for someone who needs hope. Until our next journey, travel gently, trust deeply, and rest peacefully. Full Sleep Stories on Golden Haven. Subscribe for peaceful nights.